Hey, if you're enjoying Hooks and Ladders, and why wouldn't you be enjoying Hooks and Ladders? Be sure to like and subscribe, follow us on social media, and hey, head on over to songstudio.ca to check out what we're up to. If you sign up for our mailing list, you'll be the first to know everything that's coming up and everything special that we got going on at SongStudio. You won't regret it. Hey, welcome to Hooks and Ladders. What you're about to see is part of what we did at the SongStudio workshop in Toronto in July 2022. There'll be lots more to see. We're just going to roll it out a little bit at a time. So sit back and enjoy. And if you want to know more about SongStudio, visit www.songstudio.ca and check us out. Enjoy.
This is my friend and someone I admire. This is Jeff Rogers.
Hey.
That's your cue to applaud. So, Jeff, we'll get into his career and so forth and why it may be relevant to you. But just the thumbnail approach is Jeff is a film producer, but is really established and known as a manager of musical artists. So this will be from the management point of view in a lot of ways. Jeff managed Crash Test Dummies and The Pursuit of Happiness and other well-known artists. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. Hi.
Hi, Blair.
I'm glad you're here. So yeah, let's talk about your history. Well, first of all, so let's say we just met at a party. This is my opening gambit. I meet you at a party and I say, "So what do you do?" We don't know each other.
Yeah.
And you say, because you do a lot of things.
I usually say, "Yeah, I don't know." I met somebody at a party yesterday, and they're like, "Well, what's your main thing now?"
Yeah.
Because I'm promoting a show in October, and I was just put in the hallway putting it on sale, and they said, "Oh, you're mostly promoting shows." I'm like, "No, I don't really even promote shows, but I'm promoting a show." But basically,
this one. Yeah.
But I'm primarily, my whole life, since I was 16, I've been a rock band manager. That's what I think of myself as a rock band manager. I didn't only manage rock bands, but I call it that. And then, but I started when I was 6. The first thing I ever did was promote a show because I liked music and I didn't know how to engage, and I was not a very good guitar player. Well, I really didn't like practicing. That was the main thing. It was less about not being good, but I didn't like practicing. So I got an interest-free loan from the Ontario government to start a summer business, and my summer business was promoting concerts. I did a show with people you won't know, but that you will. But it was BB Gabor and Johnny and the G-Rays. I was 16. I promoted at the local arena in the small town I lived in. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, but yeah, and so I did that show, and then and I booked some opening act, and I started managing the opening act the next day. They're like, "This guy got us a gig," and so he must know what he's doing.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
It's like, well, I do know that agent that I talked to,
right?
And then I later went to work for that agent in Toronto, and who paid me $80 a week to work for him. And I was like, $80 a week, I'm in. And so I came to work for him, and I found a place that I could live in for $45 a week at U of T in the dorms. Anyway, so I worked with him, and then he managed a band that Mick Ronson produced. And then I got to spend a month in the studio with Mick Ronson. Like I was at Phase 1 Studios in Scarborough every day with Mick Ronson.
Mick Ronson, David Bowie's guitarist and sometime producer.
Yeah, and he played with Ian Hunter and all that. So but Mick, and I'll just digress into Mick for 1 second. Just because he gave me the best advice I ever had in my life. Yeah. Because I was like 18, or I could have even been 19 by then. And I went into the studio, and I had been stuck in traffic, and then I had an argument with the guy that I worked for, and nothing was going how I thought it should be going at that exact moment. And I go and I plop myself down on the couch in the back of this, beautiful studio, like state-of-the-art place where Bob Ezrin was working and all these amazing people were working. And I put my head down like this, and he looks at me, and there's nobody else really in the studio except the engineer. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, what's the matter?" And so I tell him, and he wheels his chair over to me and hits me and goes, "Nobody ever said it was going to be easy." And I was like, right. That's right. And then I think that all the time. Like whenever something bad is going, I always hear Mick.
That's good.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
It's the best advice I ever had.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was like,
very simple.
Nobody said that, and nobody suggested I even do this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, nobody's holding a gun to your head to be a manager. Yeah, that's true.
And then eventually we managed Honeymoon Suite, and I got to tour around the world with them and go on a tour bus opening for Jethro Tull and Heart, and I got to see a lot of things. And Jethro Tull taught us how to use the internet in 1980. I don't know, it might have been 82. Wow. So they had Tandy 100s from Radio Shack, these flat computers they were just a keyboard with an LED screen on them. But it came with this big coupler that could go over to what is now an old-fashioned phone, that go over to the ends of the phone with a 600 baud or 300 baud modem or something like that. And and then you'd hear the electronic handshake, and you would upload your merch numbers to the bulletin board, and then I could at the office, when we were on the road and then we were at the office, you could do the same thing, and you could download the merch numbers, which is like the essential data required to know if the tour was going well. Right. So it's like, how many dollars per head did you do? That's the only thing that mattered. Like often I'll ask merch guys, well, how many dollars a head do they do? Like even now, because then that tells you what's happening. Because it could be full of people, but if they did $1 a head, that means that it was not a successful show. Right. But if it's $21 a head, which is a pretty magical number from then till now, and, that's good. And if it's $50 a head, that's phenomenal or whatever. But anyway, so we would do that, and Jethro Tull taught us that. And then I quit that job, and I started my own job, managing bands. And I managed the little brothers of the two guys in Honeymoon Suite because they both had bands. and then Erica M. and Joni Daniels, who worked at Much Music, asked me if I would manage their friend's band. And I was like, no, I won't. I'm not interested in your friend's band. I don't even want to hear it. This is often I say that when somebody offers me something, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And then she's like, well, they're really good and they're really nice. And I was like, no, I have this job where I make $400 a week consulting a movie that Bob Dylan's in. Called Hearts of Fire. And I was the rock consultant on it. And all I had to do was like buy tickets with their money to concerts and take the producers and director to the concert so they could see what a concert was going to look like. So I took them to see Elton John. I took them to see all these shows.
Wow.
And then I'd have meetings with them. And the director was a guy named Richard Marquand.
Yes.
He's passed away, but he directed Return of the Jedi as well.
Right.
And so he was directing this movie with Rupert Everett, Bob Dylan, and Fiona. Yes, exactly. I see. You know the movie.
Well, my guitar was in that movie.
Oh, really?
The actor who played in the bad band. Yeah. The actor who played the guitarist didn't play guitar, so he came to me for coaching.
Oh, yeah.
And he rented my guitar, and I put tape on the back of the neck with numbers on it to tell him, like the first part of the song, number 1, number 3, or number 2, number 3, etc. Up and down the neck. Yeah, and he did a pretty good job. I've seen the movie a couple of times, but just really to see my guitar that got stolen. It was a 67 Telecaster.
Did he steal it?
No, somebody in Hamilton stole it.
Oh, man. At the show?
No, nothing to do with the movie. Yeah, no, nothing to do with the movie.
So I booked shows for them to play and did different stuff and booked opening acts and in fact, what I did was I booked Honeymoon Suite to open for them in Hamilton so we could sell out Cops Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
Because I gave all the tickets away for free on CKOC.
Yeah.
But I charged $5 because another person who you might know, John Baylog, gave me advice, and he said, it was either him or Blue. They said, no, you can't charge nothing because, free permeates the attitude of the day is something Blue used to say. But
that's a good line.
Because if it's free, people don't want to go.
Yeah, they don't value it.
Or they don't value the ticket. They have the ticket, they don't want to go.
But then they don't go.
But then if the ticket has a value number on it, even if they got it for free, they're like, oh no, I have to go because that ticket is worth X amount. Anyway, I hired Honeymoon Suite, paid them a lot of money to open.
Yeah.
And filled the arena. And they had done a movie shoot there the week before, and they're like, this is going to be the worst because 6 people showed up for the movie shoot the week before. Anyway, we filled it.
You filled it? That's
amazing. We filled it. It was sold out. And we gave away tickets every hour in CKOC. But anyway, so I didn't want to blow that job because it was $400 a week. As I said, my previous job was $80 a week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm rich now. Right. Yeah. And I'm not blowing this for some friend of your band, Right. And she's like, they're called The Pursuit of Happiness. And I was like, The Pursuit of Happiness don't have a manager. They're my favorite band.
Wow. That's, yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'll go see them. And I came to see that. I went to see them at a place that doesn't exist anymore called Larry's Hideaway.
Yeah.
And they were awesome. And they did a Marshall Crenshaw cover in their set. And I thought they were great. And I talked to them. Eric introduced me to them.
Favorite waste of time, the Marshall Crenshaw song.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah.
And they did, and so this show was great, but I'm still sort of biding my time a little bit because I still don't really want to blow the $400 a week job.
Right.
And they weren't making any money or anything. They were playing shows and not properly getting paid.
Right.
So I talked to them and I met with them and I had a bunch of meetings with them. But then their career starts really heating up. Like that video, they were playing their independent $150 budget video on Much Music.
Yeah.
And they were playing it more and more and more. And then both CFNY, now The Edge, and Q107 added it.
Yeah.
And both of them had a most requested thing that they played at night, and it was like the top 5 at whatever time, right? Or top 10 at 10 or something like that. And they went to number 1 on the both stations' requests, which is like very unusual, especially at that time.
Yeah.
Would be impossible at this time.
Yes.
But extremely unusual. Like nobody else was doing that. And then Michael Hollett put them on the cover of Now magazine.
Yeah, I remember.
And I still don't actually manage them. Now I'm getting like kind of worried that they're not going to be managed by me, because I go to their gig at Lee's Palace or something. It was sold out the week they're on the cover. And Ray Daniels and Val Azzoli are there, who manage Rush, who are like my other favorite band. And they're my favorite management company.
Yeah.
And like, and every other, and Skinny was there. William Ten, he was a big manager, did manage Lois Low at the time. And anyway, at all these, every manager's there.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I've blown it.
Yeah.
And then I waited till everybody left, and every single person left after the show. And I'm like, where are all the other managers?
Right.
So I talked to them kind of sheepishly, and I was like, how much money did you make tonight? And they're like, $500. And I was like, it was sold out. It was to the rafters. You couldn't move. And I was like, well, while you're trying to figure out who should manage you, can I book you a couple of shows? And they were like, okay. So I called Tony, the guy from 20 Grand West,
Yeah.
and who managed Platinum Blonde. And I said, can you, he had 2 bars, 20 Grand West and Tony's East.
Yeah.
East out here, obviously 20 Grand West the other direction. And this was not where you want your alternative rock band to play normally, because it's like they have strippers in the day and then rock bands at night.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got this band. They're number 1 most requested on Q107. And he's like, okay, we'll book them both shows like the same week. And I said, he's like, how much? I'm like, $1,200. He's like, okay, confirms it, $1,200 each show. So they made more money than they made to their whole career live that week at these. And then they go and they play there, and there's like, we're doing sound check and the strippers are still on, and there's 2 girls in the band and 3 alternative thinking and good thinking guys. And they're like, why are we here?
Why are we here?
And I was like, here, he already paid me. Here's the $1,200. And they're like, okay. And then but you know what? They packed both clubs.
Yeah.
And they rocked, and they were good, and they'd opened their mind that they could play other places than downtown Toronto.
Right.
And so I just kept booking them gigs until they finally signed with me, and then I booked them a tour out west. And
How long did it take between, when you first met them after the Larry's Hideaway show and they
Starting to
actually
manage them?
became
It
manager?
was probably months, actually.
Wow.
Like I'd say it was months because I was dilly-dallying, and then they were in the driver's seat of the negotiation. Although we found equanimity.
Yeah. Well, clearly, yeah.
And then it worked out well. Worked out extremely well, and then I turned down all the record deals they got offered, even from Warner, and because I didn't like the record deals. So I'm like, they're older than me, and I'm 20, and they're like, but I'm really at 20 I have 4 years of pretty solid experience.
Yeah, but
like I'm really in the music business already, right?
Yeah, but they were mid-20s at that point.
Yeah, they're mid-20s, and they're like, and they've been around. They've been a couple. Dave and Mo had been in a band called Face Crime before that, that were excellent. Anyway, I eventually get them a record deal.
Right. Yeah, fantastic. And then they had they made a few records for a major American label. It was,
Chrysalis. We did it with Chrysalis, a sort of mini major kind of thing. Yeah. But they had Billy Idol's Sinead O'Connor, Pat Benatar.
They were doing okay.
Yeah. Huey Lewis. They had Huey Lewis.
That's
They always don't mention that. But we signed with then we had a couple of good deals offered. We found the one that I liked, and we took it with Chrysalis.
Yeah.
And the A&R person I liked, her name's Kate Hyman. She works at BMG in New York now. And basically I asked the same question of each person. We've already talked to Todd Rundgren, and we've already talked to his manager, and that's the only producer we want to work with. And if you can pay for him to produce the record, then we'll sign with you.
Yeah.
And she said yes. Kate said yes. And I said, well, you have to talk to his manager, Eric Gardner. And so she talked to him, and he's like, okay, it's like the price for Todd was $175,000.
US.
That included US. That included the studio, included Todd, included everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, absolutely. So we signed the deal. And then she calls him up and says, okay, we're good to go. We only have $100,000. And he's freaking out, but Todd doesn't care about money. And Todd's like, okay, well, we'll schedule it in, because it was already talked about. Because it's not, his concern's not money. Eric's concern was money.
Right.
Anyway, we did the record for $100,000.
For $100,000.
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that part.
Probably the only record that he did for that price.
Yeah, I would think so. Todd Rundgren, aside from being an incredible artist in his own right, as a producer, he produced the band's Stage Fright, but also Bat Out of Hell for Meatloaf, among many other big productions.
He did.
And he and Mo Berg, the leader of Pursuit of Happiness, definitely had a musical affinity. It was a real match made in heaven.
It was a perfect producer.
Yeah,
he did the
fit.
first two records.
Yeah.
And he taught us a lot too.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah,
we learned a lot from him.
Did he get paid his actual fee for the second record?
He might have. I can't remember.
Okay.
It was less important to me.
Right. Yes. And less important to him too.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's quite a drop, though. I didn't realize that. All these years, I thought it was 100, because that's what Mo told me. $175,000 is what Todd charges.
Yeah, no, but we got him for that. Yeah, but that's what he charges. But we got him to do. Anyway, you go. What happens when you go to his house? He spends no money on recording your record.
Yeah.
So we show up at his house, and he has a house, and there's a house for the band, and then there's a sort of pretty big shed that's really cool in the middle, with a Neve board that had a crack in it from the translator for the Japanese band he was producing sat on the board and cracked his board, so that's still there. A bunch of Beetlebox amps and like some orange amps and stuff like that sitting around that you can use in the live room. And Todd, there's no engineer.
Yeah.
Like, because on Skylarking for XDC that he produced, Chris Anderson, I think is it Chris Anderson that was his engineer?
His engineer, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So he would have engineered all those records. So maybe that's what they did. They just dropped Chris.
Yeah.
But Todd engineered the record. He's got a Fairlight, which was an old sampler that cost like a lot of money back then. It had a
little green
screen,
computer screen,
and you get your sounds out of there, which I mean he may have used. And then Todd. So this was another lesson I learned, actually. I sit down at the board. Well, the band, he's like, okay, we're just going to do it live off the floor because you are a live band.
Yeah.
And he'll just record it, which he did. And Mo used the Beetlebox amp. And then, so they're playing. The very first thing that happens is they play the first song. He's like, he pushes the talkback button. He goes, okay, that was approaching the Grateful Dead. Try it again. So
that's not a compliment, by the way, just so you know.
But you know what? He was super cool. The experience, I could talk for a week about the experience of being there. But the one thing is I sat down with him and he lights a joint and he takes a puff on the joint and he hands it to me. And I was like, okay. So I smoke it and then I go to hand it back to him and he goes, no, thanks. So I smoke the whole thing. But it's like, because I'm just like, okay. But it's Todd Rundgren's pot, which is not what I had any affiliation with.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I can't leave the studio because I'm afraid to walk down the stairs from the control room. I'm afraid to even stand up or say a word. And and then I see him look over at the ashtray and there's just like a little thing and he's like, like, do you not get it? That wasn't for you. It's like somebody has a piece of cake and then hands you the cake and you eat the whole thing. Anyway, so I learned don't do that.
That's a good thing to learn. Definitely a good thing to learn.
But don't consume everything people give you in the music business.
That's right, yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this little taste of the SongStudio workshop in Toronto in July 2022. Stay tuned for more.